Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a unique into legendary crafting guide. Looking behind me, you can see I have a number of different items that I want to show you in a demonstration. In this video, I have written some pretty detailed notes over here, and I will go through this as well to provide you guys with all the information. The first part, I'll briefly explain how does crafting work and what you need to do about crafting. The second part is very important about tips and also tricks you can do before crafting, because you can see some of the exalted items I have multiple affixes, others I have limited to only one affix, which give us a greater chance of crafting onto a better legendary potential, which I explain in this video. Now finally, I also want to cover the difference between legendary potential appearing on different uniques, because certain uniques will have as low as 0.77% for 2 LP, while other uniques will have like 12% rate. So it's quite important for you to know how valuable your uniques are and how to go through with crafting before wasting your precious items. So coming over to the first part, in order to craft uniques into legendaries, you have to come to Temporary Sanctum, and you can be right clicking onto the key and it will tell you the location and also tell you to come over here. Once you have entered the location, you should prepare at least one key, some uniques with legendary potential and also some exalted items at the same time. Once you put the key in, you'll be able to start the dungeon. Now throughout the dungeon mechanics is quite simple. You just press D to time shift so you can be looking for different entries and also different ways of pathing through the dungeon. And the dungeon does have a minimal level of level 55 recommended. You can do this earlier, but be careful guys, if you die, you will lose your key and you have to start the run with another set of key. So it's quite important for you to not die here, otherwise you don't get the run. Sometimes when you can't open the door, time shift into a different frame to open the door. Notice here I can't open the door, right? But if I go to a different time frame, here you can open the door. So it's quite important for you to keep changing the time frames as you progress through the dungeon. Now, as you fight the boss, what you're going to notice is actually died so fast. So as you fight the boss over here, you can come closer to the boss, then time shift onto the boss to give you a direct access onto the boss. One thing to notice, the boss does have a time delayed one-shot mechanics, which will go around in a circle, and this will be important. At this time, before the circle reaches its completion, you should time shift out of the way to not take the damage. But I was doing too much damage, I didn't get to do it. And here notice I time shift onto another dimension. But be aware, don't stay on the other dimension too much, otherwise you get plagues on the ground, which will deal damage over time to you. So always time shift back after you dodge the boss's skills. Once you pick up the loot, go forward, and this will allow you to craft your unique items into legendaries. So here is also a stash. Notice right away, you can pick up items from your stash and then come over here. You want to first time shift so you can enter your items. So how it's going to work is you're going to put items into the slots over here, and once you put it in, you time shift again, the item will be crafted. Now hopefully the first part was quick enough, and some of you might have noticed, some of you might not. So I try to give you guys a complete guide. The next part is quite important. You want to find unique items with at least one legendary potential. Notice I have 2 of the stuff over here. Any unique item without legendary potential cannot be crafted, so be aware of these guys. So if I put this in, this won't allow me, right? You need legendary potential. Now with any of the legendary potential, it can roll from 1 to 4 legendary potential, and the rates will vary, which we'll talk about on the third part. Once you have a unique item with legendary potential, you're going to put it in together with an exalted item with 4 affixes. Notice that it has to have 4 affixes, and this is the biggest part. Once you put both items in, you come out of the seal and also you finish the seal, and that will be completed. Now most of us will think this is all random and it's very RNG based. Well, there is a little more crafting and also method involved, so this is when we come over to the second part. Now before we start crafting, it's important to know which affix you want on your gears. Sometimes you can be following a guide, the guide will say, oh, this goes with casting speed, you really want to get that. Other times you will say, oh, get critical strike multiplier. So the reason of you going for a certain affix will depend on your build. My build will be going for necrotic damage, and also intelligence will always help. One of the reasons for you to check is to hover over your spells. You can see that the scaling tags are necrotic, spell, and also intelligence. So if I were to get spell damage, if I were to get necrotic damage, and if I were to get intelligence, this will help. If you press hold Alt onto your spells, you can see how much those will scale with a different damage percentage. and this can be quite useful as you go through your spells and also go through your damage. Notice that intelligence will be scaling higher with each intelligence giving me 4 more %. Now it is very important for us to know that we'll be crafting our exalted item before we put it in. So what I mean by that? So let's have a look at one of the many exalted items I have prepared for us. So for example, if I have, those are not the best, this is actually not bad. So let's say if I wanted the critical strike chance and also spell damage. And the shotgun hit, I don't really need that. So before I start, I want to make sure the 2 affixes or the few affixes I want to have to be crafted onto my weapon is maxed out in tier 6 or tier 5. And I'll give you guys an example over here. So let's say if here I want to spell critical chance, and before crafting, I want to be maxing out spell critical chance into a tier 5 before I craft. So this way, I have a chance of getting narcotic damage, I have a chance of getting spell critical chance, and those are the 2 I wanted. Now for the ones I don't want, I don't really need to be crafting those, because if I get those, it'll be a little unlucky. But if you want to min and max, you can also craft those to higher levels, just in case you get the bad one, but you still get a nice chance. So once you min and max out the good affixes, now it's time to remove the bad affixes. There are multiple ways of crafting, and those are the ways shared by me to a friend. I haven't used the first 2 ways because I don't have that many glyphs, but I have used the 3rd way quite effectively. So here we'll be focused on the 3rd method. In the future, I'll be demonstrating to you guys the other 2 methods, but I will go through this one anyways in this video. So how does this work? Well, firstly, let's use an example for this particular wand. Notice that it has to be wand onto wand for me to be crafting. So for this exalted wand, let's say if I want a critical chance, but I don't want anything else that's on it. I don't want minion damage, I don't want lightning damage. So there are a few ways of me to getting rid of those things. So one way of trying to get rid of those things is actually coming from the rune of removal. This will remove randomly out of the affixes that is available. Notice I want to keep the critical chance, but I want to get rid of the lightning and also minion spell. So there is 1 in 4 chance of me to remove the ones I want to keep, and some good chance of me to remove the other ones. So let's say if I try this, I got rid of 1. So now there's 1 in 3 chance of me losing what I want to keep, and I could keep doing this one, depends how I feel. I got lucky again. So this way you can be removing the affixes you don't want. And then once you have something like this one, which I crafted before, you can then craft the ones you wanted. So here, let's say if I put this in, let's say if I want to be crafting, let's say casting speed or critical multipliers, I can then craft the things I wanted onto this particular wand and max this out to tier 5. Now to be in mind guys, you need at least 4 affixes to be crafting over here, and this is important. So for me, I could be crafting any of the 4 affixes I want with the 2 best ones I wanted, and with the other ones, that's okay. So this way I can guarantee I know what I'm getting onto my wand, onto my legendaries. Now be aware guys, during the example I showed you guys, I was quite lucky with the 2 rows. It is possible that for us to remove the good ones we want to keep. So let me show you guys the final example over here. So this one now is a 50-50 chance to remove the lightning damage. You can be removing this one, or you can remove the tier 7 affix. Let's see what happens. I removed the tier 7 affix. Oh no. So be careful. This method has a drawback. This could completely destroy your exalted weapon. That was pretty unlucky. But I'm glad I showed you guys in the demonstration, because this happened multiple times while I was trying to make this one into a single affix before I start crafting. And this will also reduce the crafting potential. To be careful of this, you want to have enough crafting potential so that this gear will have at least 4 affix on this particular gear, otherwise it can't be crafted. Now the alternative method shared to me by a friend is to use the Glyph of Despair and also the Glyph of Insight to turn those into experimental, and the sealed affixes should not be affected. So what I've heard, but I haven't tried this myself, so let me try over here. I'll use one of the examples over here. So over here, notice that, let's say if I don't want shotgun hits, I want to get rid of this one, and I want to make this one a free spot so I could be crafting something else. Instead of attempting to go rune of removal, I can then consider using any of the rare glyphs I have, like the Glyph of Despair to seal this one at lower tier levels. I'll try to turn this one into an experimental affix and then sealing it. So by turning experimental affix, and then I can use Rune of the Research to seal the experimental affix. And by doing so, we can then free up more spot to be crafting the affixes I wanted. By the moment, I haven't used this method, but I'll be making another guide onto this one once I try out this method fully. So technically, the sealed affixes will not be crafted onto the legendary. This allows you to have 4 affixes over here, 1 sealed affix that will be not included. So let me use this boots as an example. So notice that the sealed one is actually the health regen. This will not be crafted onto the legendary if I was going for the boots. The other ones will be included, including 29% movement speed, vitality, health, and also hyper health. So this boots are actually not bad for crafting the legendaries as well. Now I know I kept you guys long enough before I started crafting. So let's do a crafting, then we come over to our third and also final part. So here what I want to do is, I want to get my 2 legendary potential round and have some decent stats on it. Here I'm thinking the critical strike chance and also the spell damage is not bad. I can go for something else, of course. I can go for the narcotic damage and also the spell critical chance too. So there are a variety of things I can go for. And here, let me show you guys the choices. So notice that before I start, I do want to increase the level of the spell critical chance. So narcotic damage, spell critical chance, not bad. So let me max this out. But be careful guys, you want to have at least 1 over here. So before I go for the spell critical chance, I need to make sure I have another affix over here before things started. So let's have a look what we want. So I think the best ones we can go is going to be the narcotic penetration. And I'm just going to press these ones. Oh good, he didn't take away my crafting potential. So I want to save my final crafting potential onto this one. And then this has 11%. I don't think I'm really needing for those 2. So now it's a choice. I can get more of this, try to get more of this, but I don't think I have a lot of those affixes, but I can just try to YOLO. I think I'll just try to YOLO. So this is not the best way you want to do it, but I'll explain why I'm using a legendary 2 potential over here to be crafting something like this. Now let's say if I want to remove one of those bad ones, I could still use the previous method before, but I usually do it before I start crafting. And be careful guys, don't run out of the crafting potential or the fortune potential before you get all your 4 affixes. So let's go ahead with the crafting. So if I come over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 2 legendary potential in. I'm not going to put this one in. Now, before I start, you can press Alt and Control to see the affixes. So I have a tier 7, a tier 5, and 1 tier 2 and also 1 tier 1. Now, I'm really hoping for the first 2 to roll onto it and see how lucky we are. So I put it in. It doesn't come out, so you only get 1 chance. So I'm gonna press D, take my item, and YOLO! Well, it's a 50-50. I wanted narcotic damage, the spell was not bad. I guess the penetration will be okay. So I got moderated result. It's not the best result. In hindsight, I probably should have upgraded the chance of shock a little higher because I still had the legendary crafting potential. So that was my mistake. Other than that, it was a YOLO. And yes, I still have 1 spare one with 1 legendary potential, but now I can upgrade my gears onto 2 legendary potential. Now let's come over to a third part. Why do I talk about legendary potential rates, and why am I willing to use a 2 legendary potential to YOLO on a, a okay-ish exalted item, not a perfect crafting? It's because certain unique items will have a different chance of dropping different legendary potential. So if I come over to the last park builder tools over here, what you're going to see is, let's say I'm comparing currently 2 unique items. One is the one I have, the Mad Alchemist wand. The other one is going to be the Lost Soul. The Lost Soul will be much more rare to get legendary potential. So if we scroll down on 2 of those uniques, you're going to see that the Lost Soul have a 15% chance for 1 LP, as low as a 0.7% chance for 2 LP. And then 3 LPs, like 4 LPs, is impossible. But on the other hand, if we're looking into my Mad Alchemist wand, the first one LP is 37%. The second LP is high as 12%. So here's 0.7%, here's 12%. This is the reason I was willing to use a 2 LP on this item, because it's quite common to get this one on the 2 LP. Even for 3 LP, it's 1.82%. So compared to this one, it is so much more happening. And finally, the extremely more rare is 0.062%. So usually with 4 LP, it's pretty rare. But for this particular one, I can easily get a 2 LP on this one, and maybe 3 LP is more rare. So this is actually quite important for you to search up the items you're looking for before you craft, to see how rare it is before you craft those 1 LP or 2 LP items. Sometimes 1 legendary potential could be pretty rare, and 2 is extremely rare for certain items. So you don't want to be wasting your items before knowing this. And if I was crafting this particular Lost Soul, I'll be extra careful to get a perfect roll for my exotic items before I craft onto 2 LP. Now I forgot to mention, it is possible guys, you find an item with multiple LP, multiple exalted item tier 6 and also tier 7 affixes. This is one of the examples I found. It's not the best item, but notice that this one has a tier 7 affix with chance to poison, and also a tier 6 affix with melee damage. So sometimes if you get something nice like this one, this is when you want to use those items onto the much more rare LP rate, maybe LP2, maybe LP3. To give yourself the best chance of getting the best crafting items, and then use our crafting method by removing the ones you don't want, like the tier 1s over here. Now hopefully you found this crafting guide helpful. In the future I'll be making more crafting guide, including different method of making this weapon stronger. Now if you haven't seen our previous clip, I'll show a short clip of this one. This one doesn't require legendary potential. You can just eat any shot from the two-handed sword and make this weapon stronger with a random chance. So I'll be updating our guide in the future, and our notes will be available in the links below.